Too Much Information is a production of iHeart Radio. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Too Much Information, the show that brings you the secret history and little-known facts behind your favorite movies, music, TV shows, and more. We are your inflatable cartoon characters of info.
Nope.
Your festive float riders of facts.
Nope.
Your department store divas of details. Nope. Giving thanks for each and every one of you tuned in today.
Nope.
My name is Jordan Runtagh.
Nope.
Come on, those were all good.
No.
Those were all solid.
Nope. Every single one a miss.
How would you have done that?
Not at all. I'm Alex Heigl. Why do you care about the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade, Jordan?
Well, I'll tell you. Well, I had a whole intro written that I was going to tease that, but I guess I'll go right into it.
Nope.
You know why? In the recent episode, I think it was the candy episode, we talked about how the Super Bowl was one of the last vestiges of monoculture that we have.
Yes.
And I think I would also include the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade on that short list. Unlike the Super Bowl or even the Olympics, it's an event that's purely based on frivolous fun. And I see the Thanksgiving Day Parade as a descendant of variety show vaudeville, which is largely extinct in 21st century mass media.
Okay.
You don't have plate spinners. You don't have acrobats. You don't have novelty acts. Like that's gone. That's gone. This is the closest thing we have as part of our culture.
Is it?
Yeah.
You're connecting vaudeville to...
And all the Ed Sullivan, like, goofy stuff.
To the Macy's Day Parade?
Yeah, I mean, I said it's a descendant. There's nothing else out there like this. You know, we got the Dick Clark Rockin' New Year's Eve. Yeah. That's basically like a lame halftime show. It's just been updated into oblivion. It's nothing. You got the 4th of July fireworks, which are also hosted by Macy's. That just doesn't have the same appeal. It lacks the goofiness factor. You know, you got the Boston Pops. It's too stuffy. You know, the Oscars, they swing wildly between taking themselves too seriously and then also revealing troubling truths about our society. The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, it makes no bones about what it is. It's pure, stupid, giddy, corny celebration. And I think we need that. I strongly believe in that. And, you know, I'm not going to lie, I've fallen off from watching it regularly, but I still get happy when I'm walking between rooms with casserole dishes or tablecloths on Thanksgiving morning and I see that it's still on.
I guess I don't disagree with what you're saying about those other aspects of monoculture, but I guess I just is this really such a thing? I would have thought like football was more of a thing on Thanksgiving.
Really? On Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade? I mean, I guess, you know, I'll leave it to listeners to tweet at us.
No, I mean, I remember my mom liking it a good bit.
Mine too, yeah.
I never once went for it when I was in New York. Did you?
Oh, no, God, no. Well, I was always home, first of all.
Right, sure.
But even if I wasn't, I would like to see the inflating of the balloons the night before. That'd be kind of cool. That seems a little less chaotic, but yeah, no. I mean, for the same reason I would never do the ball in Times Square.
Sure.
The people in the cold, no.
Yeah. Well...
Yeah, what do you think about this? I guess you don't think about this.
I don't think about it.
It's Whitney Houston on Mariah Carey.
I don't think about you at all.
Yeah. Don Draper, yeah.
It does seem unbearably quaint in the sense of like, you know, let's get a bunch of large things and put them down a street.
Yeah. It's hilarious that we still have that.
Yes.
It's hilarious. They spend, you know, for me, it's the same reason that I love big, stupid musicals. Because I find the inherent joke of it all, wow, somebody took a lot of time and effort and money and got a whole bunch of other people and convinced them that this was a good idea and put all these resources into it for something that's really kind of goofy. And I admire that chutzpah. I find that idealism. I find it to be both the best and worst of being American. And I think that sums up Thanksgiving perfectly. A day of giving thanks and gratitude, but also a day of absolute gluttony and waste. I think it's the same yin and yang of America.
I guess I just don't see the artistry in it in like the same sense as like a musical.
My friend.
No, I've
got 17 pages.
I'm well, but to me, artistry is different from
craftsmanship.
Yeah. The Macy's Day Parade is an example of like, organization and craftsmanship, but it's not a musical. I'm sorry. There's at least some like emotional content to a musical. I don't get you watch a big Spider-Man float down the street and you're what? Transcended? Like, what does that tell us about the human experience?
I think it's the same as a firework. How do you feel about watching a firework?
Yeah, no, fireworks whip.
Well, okay, but yes, I know they whip, but
yeah,
it's the same experience of everybody in one place looking up and going, wow.
Maybe. I guess I connect fireworks to something more primal, which is just like the
fire.
Yeah, the love of blowing, of things exploding. I don't like. That's
well, we got some exploding balloons in here.
That's true.
Yeah.
No, but that's like the first love of man. Other than violence and sex, it's probably and alcohol. It's got to be top 5. Right.
Well, okay. Well, what about looking to the sky, waiting for a giant being to come down and grace you?
You're reaching, is what you're doing, and I respect it because that's what you do. But no, I don't get it, and I feel like if it went away, I would go, huh, and then never think about it ever again in my life once ever. And I didn't realize this was such a thing for you. Like, you turned this around in like 3 days after being like, well, I'm getting into the Macy's Day Parade. Just, it kind of came out of nowhere for me.
Well, I mean, don't ever underestimate my ability to just get interested in anything and then spin it into something.
That's true. That's true. Okay, man. All right. I'm willing to go along with it. I'm here for it. It's giving...
I don't think you've read through this at all, so I think we're going to get a lot of live reacts.
It's giving thanks. It's giving balloons. Do you like balloons?
Not any more than the average bear.
So you're not like
I'm not a looner, no.
So, but if somebody brought you, say...
No. I wouldn't. I'd say, well, now I got to deal with this until until it dies. It's like a pet I didn't ask for. Well, I have to take. It's kind of how I feel about flowers too. It's like, well, I got to take care of this.
This is going to die
until
in my
it
house.
dies.
Yeah. You've brought me a corpse to dispose of.
Well, here's a question I never would have thought I would have asked you on the show. What do you think about balloons, Heigl?
I can take them or leave them. I find it funny that it's an art form that has persisted. I mean, I get, they're for kids and you can inhale the helium and it'll make your voice sound funny. Yeah. Although I did have a terrifying, I remember one time my high school chemistry teacher was like talking about how helium like paralyzes your vocal cords.
Oh yeah. And it's not good to do that, is it?
Yeah, and then like as an aside, and she was like, also my husband is dying, and that's what's happened to him. It's just like a very, very bizarre moment of being like 16 and having an adult just like drop light. She was a bit of a kook, God love her. She was a water witch in rural Pennsylvania when she was growing up.
What is a water witch?
Dowsing, dowsing.
No.
Oh, that's
you think I would, but I don't.
Yeah, that's like an old folk magic thing where you walk around with a stick and
with a stick. Oh yeah. I didn't know that was what that was called.
Yeah, and she was like thought to have had that power in Pennsylvania, wherever.
What are you looking for with the stick?
Water. It would be in like Appalachia and Appalachia. Sorry, in Appalachia and such. That would be where you would sink your well, where the water witch told ye.
That's a hell of a racket.
Yeah, maybe that's why I don't like balloons, is because she traumatized me in that weird way. I don't know. I don't give a shit about balloons. You know what I like? Pumpkin pie.
Yeah.
Why didn't you give me 17 pages on pumpkin pie?
I see you was more of a pecan guy, though.
Ooh. I'll allow it. I'm not offended by that. At least you didn't say apple.
I'm glad you said that. I don't like apple pie, and it's everyone's favorite. I don't understand
not like it. I just find it so basic.
Well,
know?
Yeah. Well, that, yeah.
You just want to just shoot the shit for this whole episode about Thanksgiving.
we can work that in somewhere. Yeah. Sure. we could definitely work at a sec. We could do a type 5 on pies.
What about cranberries? I like. What about that?
I like cranberry sauce the older I get. Now, do you like it out of a can?
Yeah,
or do you like
that's
it
what
fresh?
I'm saying. I like that weird gelatinous stuff where it shakes out of the can in one form and you can still see the indentations
The
of the
ridges,
can shape.
yeah.
Love that. That's America to me. And that's beautiful. All right, take it away. Jordan.
Well, we will have fun. I promise. I sense how anxious you are right now. We will have fun. It will be okay.
I never said we wouldn't. I
know.
No, continue. Go ahead. All right.
At the end of this episode, okay, folks, I'm calling out. At the end of this episode, I want to check in with you. This is going to be so much more entertaining than you ever thought. Because here's the fundamental difference between you and I about how we approach this series. I don't mind covering things that I don't care about as long as the stories are interesting.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't care about the topic, that's it for you.
Yeah.
And that's interesting to me.
Okay.
That's why I was able to turn around 17 pages on the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in like 2 days. I'd never really thought much about it before this. And then the more I dug into it, the more I found interesting stuff.
And that's beautiful.
And now we get to share that with people.
Yeah.
That is what I am thankful for.
That is America.
This Thanksgiving. That is America, and that is what I am thankful for this Thanksgiving. Well, folks, from Macy's connection to my beloved Titanic, to the time stray balloons nearly crashed an airplane, to the sweat-filled boot camp-like life of a rockette, to the hilarious pettiness between rival TV networks for broadcasting rights, here is everything you didn't know about Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Now, before we talk about Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, Heigl, do you know the Ragamuffin Man?
Is it like the Rag and Bone Man?
No,
Okay.
it's not. This is a truly bizarre, eccentric predecessor or precursor to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade called Ragamuffin Day. For many years, at the turn of the century, there was a Thanksgiving Ragamuffin Parade, which was an event where local children dressed up as beggars and asked adults on the street for pennies, candy, and apples. It was, as we'll get to, not terribly dissimilar to Halloween trick-or-treating. This very whimsical tradition has a somewhat depressing origin, as so many whimsical traditions do. In the early 19th century, poor Massachusetts residents started knocking on doors on the eve of Thanksgiving, begging something for Thanksgiving. And as a terrible, tasteless joke, well-to-do children in the neighborhood began dressing in tattered clothes and doing the same thing, mocking these poor, starving people. And then...
Go Mass.
Yeah. So... After Abraham Lincoln proclaimed Thanksgiving an official holiday in 1863, towns across the country held elaborate masquerade balls and parades, and children mostly dressed as these ragamuffins. It became a thing, and soon that became the dominant tradition on Thanksgiving morning in the late 1800s and early 1900s. They just ran around the streets in rags. They darkened their faces with soot. They modeled themselves after Charlie Chaplin in The Tramp, basically, and they'd ring doorbells and always say, anything for Thanksgiving. By the 1900s, it was known as Ragamuffin Day, and it wasn't exactly popular with the city officials. The New York Times complained in 1903, the practice of ringing all the doorbells and demanding backsheesh is long past a joke. And a 1909 Sons of Daniel Boone handbook moaned, this must be a foreign innovation, for no self-respecting American boy would think of parading the streets, dressed up like a ragamuffin and begging a cent from each passerby. And this is truly wild. Especially mean-spirited New Yorkers began heating up coins on their stoves and throwing these so-called red pennies out onto the streets and roared with laughter as these kids burned their fingers to try to take them.
This is really the most like American holiday possible. Starts with mocking the poor.
Yeah.
Ends with becoming a weird, the middle ground is it becoming a weird nativist dig where there's like a hint of anti-immigrant, a soupçon of anti-immigrant sentiment in there by the Daniel Boone Society? ?
Yeah, which I haven't looked up.
Is that like the John Birch Society?
I would only assume, yeah. And then burning the fingers of children.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. By the 1930s, articles appeared in the New York Times calling for an end to the Ragamuffin Day tradition, mostly because everyone found it annoying. There's a piece from 1936, Ragamuffins Frowned Upon is the headline. Despite the endeavors of social agencies to discourage begging by children, it is likely that the customary Thanksgiving ragamuffins, wearing discarded apparel of their elders with masks and painted faces, will ask passersby, anything for Thanksgiving? The New York school superintendent sent a memo to his principals which stated, quote, modernity is incompatible with the custom of children to masquerade and annoy adults on Thanksgiving Day. Many citizens complain on Thanksgiving Day that they are annoyed by children dressed as ragamuffins who beg for money and gifts. Organizations like the Madison Square Boys Club began throwing parades to, quote, discourage the Thanksgiving ragamuffins, and they sported the slogan, American boys do not beg.
The Sons of Daniel Boone were merged into the Boy Scouts. They were like an early competitor that merged in, but they used to dress in like the classic
the hat
fringed buckskin situation, which is so
the whole
much
bit, not just the raccoon hat,
but yeah, that is so cool, so much cooler than a Boy Scout uniform.
Wow. So these parades began to kind of outstrip the whole Ragamuffin Day tradition for popularity. And also the Great Depression went a long way towards killing the Ragamuffin Day tradition because at this point, the answer to the question, anything for Thanksgiving, was usually no. The Ragamuffin Day parades were largely a thing of the past by the 50s, having been outshone by the bigger balloon-centric parades like Macy's, which had received a boost in popularity thanks to its inclusion in the 1947 film Miracle on 34th Street, which we'll talk about later. This was also a period when Halloween was starting to become a bigger deal, so the whole costumed door-to-door begging tradition was absorbed into that. The loss of Ragamuffin Day hit some nostalgic New Yorkers hard. As one patrolman told the New York Times, I remember how my fingers got blistered, but they don't have any real fun like that anymore. Heigl, what are your thoughts on Ragamuffin Day?
I think we should bring it back. I mean, not necessarily the burning coin situation, but, you know, I'll walk around and ring people's doors for money. I need it just as much as anyone. Everyone does.
Or cornbread or pumpkin pie or whatever you got.
Yeah, anything for Thanksgiving, you know.
That's cool.
It's like the purge.
No, that's after Thanksgiving.
Oh, okay.
So Ragamuffin Day gave way to parades on Thanksgiving. And given its status, you would imagine that Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade was the first of its kind in the United States, but this was not the case. The oldest Thanksgiving Day Parade was actually founded in Philadelphia by, appropriately enough, Macy's rivals, Gimbel's. Gimbel's had a store in New York next to Macy's flagship store in Herald Square, as you may remember from the movie Miracle on 34th Street. And prior to Gimbel's closure in 1987, their rivalry with Macy's was the stuff of legend. It even gave way to a popular phrase to brush off questions you didn't feel like answering. Does Macy's tell Gimbel's? Did your grandparents or anybody ever say that?
No.
Yeah, no, mine either. Yeah. Gimbel's massive flagship store in Herald Square was home to the Manhattan Mall, which some New Yorkers may be familiar with, until 2021. It was hit hard by the pandemic, and now it's just office space.
They paved down Gimbel's and put up some office space.
But back to their glory days. The Gimbel's Thanksgiving Day Parade in Philadelphia kicked off in 1920, a full 4 years before Macy's unleashed their own holiday parade. And the Gimbel's Thanksgiving Day Parade, it's still going on, though it's gone through a handful of name changes since Gimbel's closed. Today, it's called the 6ABC Dunkin' Thanksgiving Day Parade. It's really just rolls off the tongue.
Well, at least they've got the Massachusetts connection in there with Duncan. That's got to warm the cockles of the original, well-to-do Massachusetts family who founded the parade by mocking their poorer peers.
And actually, Macy's has its origins in Massachusetts.
Oh, the state that just won't stop giving. Such a big heart. So... Oh, you were segueing that, and I was just...
I was trying to help you.
Yeah, I rejected your gift. I've rejected your they could not hear his message. They rejected him. Yeah. Macy's, founded by Rowland Hussey Macy, a native of Nantucket, perhaps the original man from Nantucket, of poetry and song. According to legend, the store's red star logo was chosen because it resembled a tattoo Macy had received from his brief period working as a New England whaler.
Come on, tattoos and whaling.
That's cool. That's cool, man. And I wonder how many Scully Square dick bags got that same tattoo in honor of him on their way to punch someone out at a Dropkick Murphys show. Taking a lot of shots at Boston tonight. Feels good. Yo. Despite this extremely metal backstory, Macy was kind of a failure for a time. Between 1843 and 1855, he opened 4 dry goods stores, including the original Macy's store in downtown Haverhill, Massachusetts, in an effort to serve the mill employees of the area. After they all shuttered, he decided to try his luck in New York. His original store was on 6th and 14th. It's on 6th and 14th. There was an American
Guitar Center.
What's that? Yeah, there was a Guitar Center. There's I think I stole a lot from the Urban Outfitters that was there.
Oh, in the corner?
Yeah.
No, it's not there anymore. Now, you know what's in that Urban Outfitters now?
What's that?
A Titanic exhibit, which I keep trying to set you up because there is a connection between Macy's and Titanic.
Anyway, it then moved to Herald Square, which is the classic Macy's location as most New Yorkers and tourists know it. Following his death, however, the company passed through a series of family members before being acquired by Isidore Strauss and his brother Nathan, who had previously had a license to sell china and other goods in the Macy's store. Isidore and his wife Ida are interesting because they famously died on the Titanic.
If you're going to die, you might as well do it famously.
Due to the orders of women and children first, Isidore was not allowed in a lifeboat. A friend wanted to ask an officer about letting him board the boat, but he refused to go while there were still women and children on board. Ida refused to leave her husband. When he tried to persuade him to go, she replied, "We have been together for many years. Where you go, I go." And that is supposedly the couple referenced in that shot of the old people cuddling together on the bed as the icy waters take them in James Cameron's Titanic.
I think the whole scene's actually enacted in the movie, too. I forget. It's been a while.
Has it?
Yeah. All right, it's been since February.
Not historically accurate, but sad. In reality, they were last seen sitting in deck chairs, and his body was later recovered floating in the ocean. He is buried at New York's Woodlawn Cemetery, along with an urn filled with water from the wreck site in tribute to Ida. The Strauss Mausoleum bears the following biblical verse from Song of Solomon 8:7. "Many waters cannot quench love, neither can the floods drown it."
There you go.
The Bible was wrong. I'd say the water succeeded. Water won. Strauss is 0. Feels like kind of a you to put that on the gravestone. Like,
yeah, the water too. The fact that they actually had an urn filled with water is not a move I would have made.
If I was a ghost lying there, I'd be like, "You put what on top of me?"
Yeah, you're not wrong. Man, they really, I mean, I probably will cut this whole thing because it's the holidays, but there have really been some incredible advancements in what to do with you after you die. Like, did you know they can put you in a firework?
Yeah, firework. There was a company doing it, pressing people into vinyl. Yeah.
Would you press yourself? Like, what would you have? Would you
I
have
do the
your
tree
songs?
Thing. No, I want to do the tree thing. Oh, what would I be pressed into?
Yeah.
Harsh noise. Yeah, like maybe an Eistersende Neubauten or
Lulu. Would you do Lou Reed and Metallica?
No. It can't have lyrics. It's got to be instrumental, and it has to make people feel. Maybe Metal Machine music. Actually, it has to make people feel like I feel all the time, which is on edge and bad. And then they'll go, "Oh, I remember him." No, I was actually joking.
Do the tree.
No, have you heard about the Infinity Chapel or like the hang on.
See, I told you we'd take this to a place that made you happy.
Yeah. Eventually. No, what is the yes, John Cage, who famously wrote not wrote so much as conceptualized minimalism in a big way with 433, which is a composition in quotes that is 4 minutes and 33 seconds of nothing. He has a piece called As Slow as Possible. And what it is a properly maintained pipe organ can sustain forever.
What?
Yeah, if it just has air flowing through it and the keys are held down, as long as the airflow never stops. So I guess it's a composition. The piano version lasts anywhere from 20 to 70 minutes, but there is a foundation that is dedicated to putting on a performance in Germany that will end in 2640.
How would you keep the airflow going?
I don't think human civilization is going to last that long, but sandbags are held on the organ's pedals. The performance started on September 5th, 2001, and it has...
Oh, good.
Yeah, it has rests involved. The note last changed on February 5th, 2022. And so what I want, instead of an eternal flame, is I want like a delay pedal set up with a guitar feeding back, so you just get a self-oscillating echo to pitched guitar feedback forever.
That's oddly beautiful. I know on some level you're being sarcastic, but I actually find that deeply touching. Because I was just watching a thing on JFK assassination for the 60th anniversary. I say as if I don't do that every year or two anyway. And was watching Jackie light the eternal flame.
Yeah.
That's that's very touching. I like that a lot. The eternal drone just like hit the guitar.
Yeah. Somebody just wanders by every now and again and just flicks a string, and the amp is loud enough and the delay is maxed out, so it just starts feeding back over and over again.
I wonder if you could make it feedback forever if you just hit it once, or not forever.
Well, you could use an EBO, which was part of it, but the batteries on those do need to be changed. So in theory, you could do it if you had it all kind of rigged up to solar panels and it just sort of and a battery to help it go overnight. Trust me, I've thought about this.
It's like the eternal flame, though. I mean, you have to have that hooked up to some kind of
propane.
Propane.
Do you think it's propane? You should know this.
I think it is. I know that it accidentally went out. I feel like a tourist accidentally doused it once or something. And it was quietly. Wait,
how many times?
2 occasions.
Oh.
Inclement weather caused the flame to go out for a second time in March 1967. First there was the holy water incident. This is per mental floss. On December 10th, 1963, a group of Catholic school children were visiting the Kennedy Memorial at Arlington National Cemetery. The gravesite was temporary, a place for the public to go grieve while the permanent memorial was being constructed. Even so, the eternal flame was already in place, lit by Jackie Kennedy on the day of the funeral. The children managed to extinguish the flame less than a month later while blessing it with holy water. Luckily, one of the grave guards happened to be a smoker, and he used his Zippo lighter to reignite the memorial.
Just a crusty old guy bending down, flick the Zippo.
All right, cover me. All right, there you go. I didn't see a thing.
Woo!
Wow.
All right, where were we?
Well, from death to consumerism.
The American experience.
Yeah.
Flagship Herald Square location of Macy's initially consisted of just one building, but expanded through new construction and eventually came to occupy a whole city block, save for a small, pre-existing 5-story building on the corner of 34th and Broadway. That was purchased by a rival of Macy's in an effort to thwart their attempt at building the largest store in the world. This rival had the largest store at the time. So undeterred, Macy's simply built around the building, which earned the name $1 Million Corner when it was sold for a then record $1 million in December 1911. Jordan, what is it now?
What it's worth?
What's in there now?
Oh, now it's a sunglasses hut.
God love this country. Macy's does not own it still, but they have leased the air rights and put a sign shaped like a giant shopping bag on the roof. Macy's became the world's largest store when it opened in 1902, and it's a title it held until 2009 when Guinness World Records certified that the accolade now belonged to the Shingsei Centum City department store in Busan, South Korea, at 5.847 million square feet Shinsegae is practically 3 times the size of Macy's. But it remains the largest in North America, with its selling space adding up to over 26 acres, or over 1.1 million square feet. That was something I wanted to pitch to. I pitched to people at one point that they wouldn't let me do, was see how long I could live in Macy's.
Oh, that's so good.
So it's like I pitched a lot of stuff. I think they like that presaged the kind of Logan Paul era of posting that they should have let me try. That was literally my pitch. I was like, I'll just go into Macy's and see how long I can stay in there uninterrupted. Like I was gonna scope out and see what the security was for their closing routine. There's no way they can lock down all 26 acres. I'm sure people have tried, but I would succeed.
I'm sure people have succeeded too.
Yeah, that's also true. It's probably motion sensors.
Yeah. What were some other experiential things? Because you did a few that were like, you did the past life regressions post.
I did the past life regressions post, and boy, I lied to that woman. I felt nothing. I made it all up. If I could remember her name, I'd call her out right now. It's a crock of shit. You just rot in the ground. There's no past lives in your body or your mind. Sorry. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So the land the building stands on has an estimated value of between $3 and $4 billion. Macy's also boasts the world's largest shoe floor with over 63,000 square feet containing 280,000 pairs of shoes. Quentin Tarantino must love it there. And speaking of shoes, Macy's was among the first American retail stores with escalators. A number of these century-old wooden ones are still preserved in the store today. You say 42.
42, yeah.
And speaking of firsts, and speaking of constructions, and speaking of firsts, Macy's was the first to introduce colored bath towels to America in 1932. Before that, they had been kept separate. Before that, America had only ever seen or imagined white bath towels. They also supposedly brought tea bags and the baked potato to the United States. And also, when Prohibition ended, the first liquor license issued by the city of New York was to R.H. Macy & Co. This brings us now to the origin of the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade. Though the first was held on Thanksgiving Day, November 27th, 1924, it was actually called the Big Christmas Parade. You disingenuous f***s. This was before the parade. This was because the parade was designed to usher in the start of the Christmas shopping season by showcasing Macy's beautiful storefront and dazzling window displays. Those framed as welcoming Santa to New York, which is an interesting bit, and why Santa always appears at the end of the parade. It wasn't until 3 years later, 1927, that it was rechristened the Thanksgiving Day Parade. And according to the New York Times, the majority of participants of this first parade were employees of the stores. This is a tradition or condition that continues to this day. In order to be involved with the parade, you must either be affiliated with Macy's or be recommended by someone who is.
Like joining the Freemasons. Do you know a Mason?
No.
I bet you do and you just don't know it.
Are you a Freemason?
You'd think I would be, but I'm not.
I kind of had you pegged for a Shriner.
I do like the hats.
Yeah, and the little cars.
Yeah.
The original parade, which began on 145th Street before ending at Macy's 34th, a 111-block, 6-mile journey. And the floats at this point were being pulled by horses rather than cars. The route has since been shortened 2.5 miles. It now begins at 77th and Central Park West, but it still ends in front of Macy's. Approximately 10,000 people watched Santa, who rode on a float designed to look like a sled being pulled by a reindeer, to be crowned King of the Kitties. Glad that one went back to the drawing board. And then enjoyed the unveiling of the store's Christmas windows. The display was titled The Fairy Frolics of Wondertown. I think I've been to that bar. And it featured marionettes of Mother Goose characters. Wow, that sucks.
Yeah.
People were really easily impressed back then, huh?
I see, and that's what I find so charming about all this. Yeah. Is that, yeah, it's very handmade.
Yeah.
It's very analog.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now
you just go on TikTok and watch people die. This is 100 years later, we've made that progress. Greatest country on earth. This is partially why most of the floats at this first year were nursery rhyme themed, depicting the little old lady who lived in a shoe, Little Miss Muffet, Red Riding Hood, and the rest. The procession included what the New York Times called a retinue of clowns, freaks, animals, and floats.
You'll notice they said animals rather than balloons. For the first 3 years of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, animals were the big attraction of the day. The Central Park Zoo loaned out donkeys, lions, tigers, elephants, camels, and bears, who were then draped in Macy's promotional pennants and marched down the 6-mile Trail of Tears down the majority of Manhattan. However, these animals reportedly terrified children, and there were also reports of marching bands having to dodge massive piles of elephant dung during their trek. So in 1927, it was decided to replace the zoo animals with less threatening and less messy balloon creatures. Although I've also read that these big balloon creatures were easier for the crowds to see, especially the short little children. So your mileage may vary. It's been weirdly hard to nail down the first balloons in the first Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, but according to my research, they included a dragon, a toy soldier, and other animal shapes. The first cartoon character appeared in 1932 in the form of a popular cartoon character, Felix the Cat. And despite the fact that he's fallen out of fashion in favor of Disney characters these days, that balloon has returned to the parade several times over the years for old time's sake. Mickey Mouse joined the parade in 1934 with a balloon that was designed by Uncle Walt himself. And that same year, 1934, the parade featured a balloon of the popular entertainer Eddie Cantor, who became, I believe, the first real-life person to be immortalized via Macy's parade balloon. And I think to date, the only other real-life person I could find who was turned into a balloon was Harpo Marx. In 1933, the balloons had sound effects, which meant that the flying 25-foot dachshund barked, the massive flying pig oinked, and the colicky kid balloon really cried, which is horrifying.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah, no, some of these old-timey balloons, if you look them up, are really freaky because they're genuinely scary. There's things like a lot of two-headed stuff. A two-headed pirate. There's the Nantucket sea serpent, presumably a nod to the Macy's founder's origin on Nantucket. Pinocchio with supposedly a 44-foot nose. I don't know how the aerodynamics of that would work. And then there was also Bobo the Hobo. Yeah, you're going to have some of those in these early years. Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing stems from the rich mocking the poor, so.
Yeah. I'd like to read this description from an undetermined year of the parade. I think it's 1932 that appeared in the New York Times, which details, quote, a human behemoth 21 feet tall that had to crawl under the elevated structure at 66th and Broadway, a dinosaur 60 feet long, attended by a bodyguard of prehistoric cavemen, and a 25-foot dachshund that swayed along in the company of gigantic turkeys and chickens and ducks of heroic size. That's a good band name.
That is a great band name.
Yeah.
Man. How big does a duck have to be to qualify as heroic? Labrador? Clydesdale?
I was going to say Beethoven. What was a Beethoven? St. Bernard. I'm going to say St. Bernard.
Yeah.
Right?
I think horse size, though. Isn't that a Reddit thing that they ask celebrities every time they do AMAs? Would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100, 500, whatever, duck-sized horses or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fighting 100 duck-sized horses or a horse-sized duck. Yeah.
Okay. What about you?
Probably a horse-sized duck, because then you'd know where you stand.
No, I would definitely. You know how many duck-sized horses I could just kick into oblivion?
100 of them, though?
Yeah.
You did take karate.
And I've been jogging, so come on. They wouldn't stand
I'd like to ask a Rockette this question. That's something. All the profiles on the Rockettes I read, Wall Street Journal really dropped the ball on that one.
As you meditate on that, we'll be right back with more Too Much Information after these messages.
Well, back to the balloons. Now, this first year of the parade, the balloons were filled with air and held aloft by a support crew with sticks. They were called upside-down marionettes back then, but kind of semi-jokingly. But these days, it's easier to think of them more as Muppets, kind of. It wasn't until 2 years after the balloons debuted, in 1929, that they began to fill them with a mixture of air and helium so that they floated. This kicked off a tradition that has made Macy's the second largest consumer of helium in this country, next to the U.S. government. Yeah, I don't know if we're doing weather balloon in quotes experiments or what, but yeah, the U.S. government is the largest consumer of helium in this country, more than Party Central or iParty or whatever.
The medical field uses helium in diagnostic equipment such as MRIs. Helium neon lasers are used in eye surgery. National defense applications include rocket engine testing, scientific balloons, surveillance craft, air-to-air missile guidance systems, and more.
And I shudder to think what the and more is.
NASA uses helium to keep hot gases and ultra-cold liquid fuel separated during liftoff of rockets. I guess arc welding. Arc welding uses helium.
Was that what the O-ring thing was in Challenger that was keeping the helium out of...
Oh, buddy, was it?
The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. I can't go from Challenger to Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Hey, it's you in the edit. It's you, however...
I need some kind of a stepping stone. Oh, man. All right. Challenger, Titanic, Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. There we go. Okay. The parade requires more than 300,000 cubic feet, or the volume of 3.5 Olympic-sized swimming pools of helium to inflate the balloons. The biggest of these balloons require 1,200 cubic feet, or approximately 2,500 bathtubs worth of helium. So that's pretty crazy.
You don't hear that as a standard unit of measurement that much anymore.
What, is bathtubs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the jacuzzis really put the kibosh on that. Helium's obviously a finite resource, and the cost to fill the balloons is more than $500,000. Now, in 1958, this was a problem because there was a helium shortage, and organizers of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade grappled with how to continue without helium. In what seems like the most complex solution imaginable, they rigged up construction cranes to hold these balloons aloft, almost like a giant gallows or something, and travel down the parade route. Admirably, but also sort of psychotically, the only years the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade were ever canceled were during World War II, between 1942 and 1944. And Macy's did their part for the war effort by donating 650 pounds of rubber from the balloons to the government. They considered calling off the Thanksgiving Day Parade in 1963, since JFK had just been killed a week before, but they opted to continue to keep up the spirits of the nation.
The nation needed to heal with Big Snoopy.
Now, it takes roughly 90 minutes to fill each balloon, so it's roughly 10 hours to fill all of the balloons used for the parade. This process begins the night before the parade at a staging area near the American Museum of Natural History at 77th Street and Central Park West. And this draws all manner of tourists and locals to come and take a sneak peek the night before, which I would actually, if I were ever here, I'm up in Massachusetts with my family for Thanksgiving, but if I was here, I'd like to see that. That'd be kind of cool. Hilariously, it only takes 15 minutes to deflate one of those giant balloons. They use the same method that everyone uses who's ever deflated an air mattress. They just open up the vents and lay on it in the street and fold it over on itself, and there you go. And now for my single favorite part of this episode. I am so excited to talk about this. We mentioned the deflation technique. For the first few years of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, organizers didn't have a deflation procedure in place. Instead, from 1927 to 1932, the handlers would simply release the balloons into the sky at the end of the parade, which admittedly must have looked pretty awesome, but as we will see, caused all manner of airborne chaos. In this first year, they merely popped after reaching a certain altitude, but Macy's didn't like this, so they strengthened the balloons the following year and introduced a truly bizarre Willy Wonka-like contest. The balloon fabric was printed with a return address on it, and those who found the balloon, or more realistically, had the thing plop down in your front lawn, were invited to send it back to Macy's and collect a $100 reward. Now, the $100 prize, this was nothing to sneeze at because this was close to an $1,800 value today. And needless to say, it became a race to find these balloons, and things got intense. I'd like to cite a December 1st, 1928 article from the New York Times in full. The headline is, 4 Macy's balloons land. 4 of the 5 balloons representing grotesque figures and released at the close of the Macy's Christmas Day parade on Thanksgiving have been accounted for last night, executives of the store said. The 5th balloon, a fantastic ghost, was reported as having been sighted moving out to sea over the Rockaways with a flock of seagulls in pursuit. The first balloon to alight was the Sky Tiger. It came down on the roof of a home of C. Shepherd in Richmond Hill, Long Island. Its arrival stirred the neighborhood to a tug of war for its possession. Mrs. Shepherd's 2 sons ran to the roof to obtain it, while neighbors and motorists rushed up from all directions. The rubberized silk burst into dozens of fragments. The capture of the early bird balloon was effected more peaceably. It alighted to the premises of Mrs. Lena Stenger of Mill Village, Long Island. The Sky Elephant, the third to be recorded, descended on a dock at 4th and Front Streets in Long Island City, and the 4th balloon, the Hummingbird, was last seen in the East River. It was broken in half, and both sections were floating with the tide, pursued by 2 tugboats. So, I almost want to stop and read through a list of these early balloons to determine which of these would have been the most terrifying to have land in your yard. You've got sea serpents, a giant dachshund, a giant hippo nearly rammed the newly completed Empire State Building before heading out to sea. It was reported by a fisherman 100 miles off of Rockaway Point, quote, walking on water. The tail of a 176-foot dragon narrowly avoided shattering windows in several office buildings in Midtown. But the horrors got worse for those involved in the nascent world of aviation. In 1931, when the so-called balloon race was in its 4th year, pilot Clarence E. Chamberlain, who, it's worth noting, was the second man to fly across the Atlantic after Charles Lindbergh, picked up a plane ride of sightseers in Brooklyn and was flying over the borough when he saw a giant balloon of Felix the cat and another giant balloon of a giant pig gliding over Jamaica Bay, which is a perfectly normal sentence. At the suggestion of one of his passengers, the pilot brought his plane parallel to the Felix balloon and managed to snag it with his wing, as well as lassoing the pig with some rope. So here's a guy flying with a Felix the Cat balloon on his wing and a rope that's towing a pig. Unfortunately, the Felix the Cat broke free, but he succeeded in bringing the pig down to earth, and he collected the prize from Macy's. Word of his endeavor must have gotten out because the following year, in 1932, a 22-year-old flight student named Annette Gibson flew her plane directly into one of these balloons, a yellow-striped tomcat, which was, 100 feet across. The fabric wrapped around the left wing of her plane, causing it to go into a deep tailspin. And she basically panicked and shut off the ignition, thinking that this would prevent fire when the plane crashed. When you're in a tailspin, try to get out of the tailspin before just turning the engine off and giving up. They were 250 feet from crashing into the rooftops of Queens when her flight instructor intervened, and they switched seats so the instructor could take control of the plane. But the cabin door of the aircraft, which had been opened to try to lasso the balloon in, was still left open, and Annette nearly fell out. Her foot got caught in the safety strap, and she was able to pull herself back in, and the instructor saved them both, seemingly violating Darwin's law, but she would go on to become a friend of Amelia Earhart. So I guess she didn't give up on her flying dream, despite that stupid choice.
Did anyone ask her why she did that?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
They just assumed she was woman crazy, in the as was in the fashion of the time. I don't mean that was a real reason. They were just what a dame, what a silly dame.
She's a hard study.
Did the voices tell her to do that? What intrusive thought was I'm gonna 9/11 one of the Macy's balloons?
I don't know. I should add, this wasn't during the parade, I want to add. This was after they let them go.
Oh, okay.
And
she was hunting it for the reward money and was like, this is how I'm going to bring it down.
Maybe she thought she could run into it and it would pop and just like the fabric would just kind of harmlessly be on the wing. I don't know. But can you imagine the flight instructor was with her? So can you imagine the flight instructor just being like, no, what are you doing? What are you doing? No.
Man, can you imagine being a really up World War I veteran and when with your weird Boardwalk Empire assassin guy plastic thing that covers the part of your face that the gas ate, and you're just doped up on the real good morphine, and you're like out on Long Island Sound and you look up and you see like a
hippo?
Yeah, a hippo or a ghost like flying by. That would be awesome.
That's what I mean. This is the stuff I thought you would like about this.
No, you're right. You're right so far.
No. Word of this incident made the news, so I should probably read more of the reports from the time and see if anybody asked her why she thought to do that. And New Yorkers decided that it was worth more to keep fragments of this balloon as souvenirs, so they tore him to pieces, and none of them were returned to Macy's. And it's probably not a surprise that the following year, Macy's ended its, they call it the balloon race, the race to find the balloons. They kept the tradition alive, though, in a scaled-down way in 1933 by releasing thousands of small balloons, 200 of which had tags offering $1 of free merchandise at Macy's. And these balloons, they were recovered as far away as Nova Scotia, which is pretty impressive. One current organizer of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, who was interviewed by People magazine, expressed a desire for the full-size character balloons to be released at the end of the 2024 parade in honor of its 100th anniversary. So we may get to see a giant hippo floating out past the Rockaways yet.
This is looking to have a bit of fun. Annette flew straight into the Tomcat.
Yeah. I've never found a good explanation.
All right.
It's a hell of a thing.
It truly is. Am I up? I just can't stop thinking about what that was like. Where she was just like in the cockpit, like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get that cat. Or were they both just drunk? Was like the flight instructor like, this will be great. Yeah, get the cat. You won't. Do it, you won't. She's on like old-timey cocaine. She's like, I'm going to get that. I'm going to get it.
Okay, you know what? I'm looking at a picture of it now. Hang on, I'm sending it to you. It's small enough that I almost get it. It's like the size of like an RV, which I mean, still, my first thought wouldn't be to fly into it, but it's like not that huge.
Dude, everything I know about flying is like, and I know very little, is like, oh yeah, you know, the slightest gust of wind on your tail can send you flying into the ground and you'll die. And this woman was just like, no, I'm gonna get that balloon. That guy. I love her. I love her so much.
I love that she was like, she went on to be like a major pilot.
Well, with cojones like that, no wonder. She didn't fear anything.
Oh, she was like 20, 21. Wait, she's kind of gorgeous. Wow, she's like really, really pretty.
No, that tracks. Yeah, she's a hot 21-year-old flying. Like, I was 21 once. I knew beautiful 21-year-old women once. They're a special brand of insane. Good for her. That's hot girl shit.
Survived into the late 80s.
Yeah.
So she
married a rich attorney. She like was just like a society dame and aviatrix. God, good for her.
It's meant more like she had a lot of time to think about what she had done.
Plotting her revenge. She's like 80. She's like tottering towards the plane one more time. They're like, Grandma, what are you doing? She's like, I'm going to get that son of a bitch. I got one last flight in me. Hello, boys. Did you miss me? Oh, we got to do Independence Day sometime.
I'm shocked we haven't. Yeah.
Where were we?
Sky pilots. Speaking of sky pilots,
moving these balloons around and killing them is more difficult than you might expect. They are, in many cases, several stories tall, and as we'll discover, extremely susceptible to high winds. Up to 90 people are needed to anchor and navigate each balloon, and they do so by grasping onto long ropes affixed to the bottom and sides. The ropes are, for some reason, called bones, and they require a specific way of handling so that they remain taut throughout the parade. All of these people are requested to be in good health and must weigh a minimum of 120 pounds. They are led by the mysterious balloon pilot, who is basically the captain of each balloon. They spend the entire parade walking backwards in front of their balloons, guiding their team of marchers and 2 anchor vehicles that also tow the balloons. As you can imagine, the balloon pilots are the most experienced balloon handlers. To qualify, they must demonstrate that they can walk the entire 2.5-mile route backwards without stumbling, as well as sit for 3 field trainings and classroom training each year. One balloon pilot has admitted to training by walking backwards through their entire neighborhood. And this is all done on a volunteer basis. Insane. Want to be a volunteer looner? You've been using this term without explaining it. I think the good people are owed an explanation.
It's a specific kind of porn fetish, I believe, people who fetishize balloons. I don't fully get it, but I'm aware of it, which really sums up my approach to so many things.
Life. For those of you seeking a chance to loon for Macy's, good luck. As per tradition, all of the handlers are either Macy employees themselves or friends and family of one. So this is a good long con for us, though. There's 27 acres of Macy's. You're going to find a cute Macy's employee. You're going to cozy up to her. We get access to the balloon. And then we drive it into the White House. Or Trump Tower. I guess that's probably easier.
It's closer. Yeah, it is closer.
Or the Union Square Guitar Center. Who's done the most harm? 1,500 volunteer spots are up yearly, and they go quickly. There are nearly 10,000 participants, from clouds to cheerleaders to dancers to marching bands to the balloon handlers and the pilot.
I don't like the phrase balloon handler. That really, I just don't.
I don't like balloon pilot. I mean, like, it implies that you're like, as I hear that and I think of the Hindenburg, not like a guy walking backwards.
You know what it is? I think of balloon handler. I think of the people who make balloon animals are the
clowns.
Yeah.
You're describing a clown.
Well, no. I mean, sometimes you just have people that are really into making balloon shapes.
Do you, buddy?
Yeah.
How many civilian balloon makers do you?
Well, quite a few. I mean, I grew up in Boston and like Faneuil Hall and stuff like that. And like, like city squares. You got the guys with the briefcases open, you throw the bucks in, and they get a hat or whatever. And they make, little unicorns and stuff out of. They're not always.
You're
clowns.
Describing a street balloon artist? I've never seen this once.
You've never seen? Oh, come on.
No, I have more dignity for the humble living statue than I do for a street balloon artist. For f***'s sake,
street balloon artist gives you something to take home. What's a still statue do?
Joy?
No.
We used to be a proper country. Well, the balloon MVP of the Macy's parade is, of course, Snoopy. There have been 9 variations of him since he made his debut as Aviator Snoopy in 1968. In 1969, he was Astronaut Snoopy to mark the Apollo 11 moon landing. There was also Ice Skating Snoopy, Winter Snoopy, somehow different from Ice Skating Snoopy, Millennium Snoopy, Snoopy the Flying Ace, a revamped aviator design, Snoopy with Woodstock, and for 2023, Beagle Scout Snoopy.
You're an Eagle Scout.
I am.
That's really cool.
No, it's not.
There's no joke there. I genuinely find that really cool. What was your project again?
It was something. It was like building a little garden and some benches at the local old folks' home.
Oh,
I thought the Boy Scouts were like edging bankruptcy because of all the molestation. How do they have money to influence the Macy's parade?
I would almost imagine that the Charles Schultz estate is really into the Boy Scouts in a nice way. And maybe this was his way of their way of trying to big up the Boy Scouts. I don't know.
Well, although Snoopy is the most frequently appearing balloon, he has an impressive 43 parades to his name. He is not the biggest. This honor belongs to Superman, or more accurately, Superman the Third. The Superman balloon debuted in 1939 to show those Jerrys what was coming to them, and reappeared in 1966 to show those hippies what was coming to them. In his third appearance in 1980, the Man of Steel got a supersized makeover, towering 80 feet tall, making him the tallest balloon to ever appear in the parade. Was that tied to the first Reeves movie?
Yeah, but also to show the Ruskies what they got coming to them. It's the year of the Moscow Olympics. I think it's related, personally.
Oh, yeah. Another beloved balloon was a green Apatosaurus dinosaur that appeared in the parade 13 times before being retired in 1976 after being displayed inside the American Museum of Natural History's Theodore Roosevelt Rotunda for 5 days. In other words, they held a state funeral for the balloon. In 2004, it's nice. In 2004, SpongeBob SquarePants made his debut as the parade's first square-shaped balloon. It takes more than 600 internal tie lines to give SpongeBob his distinctive look. And the following year, they launched the Blue Sky Gallery Initiative to incorporate the work of contemporary artists into parade balloons. To date, they've included works by Jeff Koons, Keith Haring, better, Tim Burton, Takashi Murakami, KAWS, and Yaoi Kusama. Jeff Koons' is already balloons. That wasn't a stretch. Cowards. I should do Herman Nietzsche. He's the guy who paints in blood.
Or just the Scream.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Amongst the Scream. I ever tell you about how, I mean, as you can probably imagine, this is one of the happiest days of my life. I was a kid and we were going to the local little harvest fair in our town, probably around this time of year. And I remember like not being all that excited to go. I don't know. And we pulled up and it's like in the distance. And I see the unmistakable sight of the Titanic sinking. And I'm getting closer to it. And it is a giant inflatable back end of the Titanic angled down as a slide. That someone at this harvest fair, is quaint, bobbing for apples, cinnamon apple dumpling contest.
Yeah.
Type place decided that was a good idea to rent a sinking I think this must have been right after the movie came out, and I couldn't believe it.
It's not just about the balloons, though.
Heigl, how many times do I have to tell you it's not just about the balloons?
God, get it right. No, there's
always
also
make it about the balloons.
But we're neglecting the real flesh and blood humans who perform, often in frigid temperatures. 2018 was the coldest parade on record, with performers like Diana Ross, John Legend, and Martina McBride lip-syncing in 19 degrees. According to Wikipedia, the first celebrity performer to grace the parade was Milton Berle in 1949, followed by Jimmy Durante the following year. You must remember this. That was amazing.
Did I play that at your wedding?
Jimmy Durante's a different version of it. Not the Jimmy Durante one, although we should have. Less expected guests include jazz great Lionel Hampton, a post-child stardom Shirley Temple, a pre-Partridge Family Shirley Jones, big band leader Benny Goodman, Amber Tamblin's father Russ Tamblin.
I think he was in a lot of Roger Corman movies.
Yeah, he was in West Side Story.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And he's in Twin Peaks, and the only reason I know... Tony Bennett makes sense. Willie Mays, Gene Krupa, the cast of The Munsters. Nina Simone, God, she must have loved that.
That makes me so sad.
Crackers, she's just up there angrily comping piano. Dusty Springfield, Aretha Franklin, William Shatner, The Temptations, Evel Knievel, The Village People, Andy Kaufman, Robert Stack, Bobby Stax, Lou Rawls. Hell yeah, good for Lou Rawls. Twiggy. No, I don't like that. British people shouldn't be allowed. She's British? Yeah, they shouldn't be allowed to do that. President Ronald Reagan, Telly Savalas.
There's an American.
Yeah. Shelley Duvall, Kelsey Grammer, Dave Thomas presumably of Wendy's.
Of Wendy's, yeah.
LL Cool J, Bo Diddley, the Baha Men twice. Also foreign nationals. They should not be allowed here. Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings, R.I.P. And Rick Astley, who, of course, rickrolled the crowd during 2008 by making a surprise appearance on the float of the animated TV show's Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends on Cartoon Network. Each year, a Broadway musical or two will perform a number outside of the front door of Macy's. Despite the old-timey quality of this segment, it was only introduced in the 70s. And of course, we cannot neglect to mention the non-famous human performers, the almost 3,000 marching band members from across the country who entertain along the parade route.
Were you ever in a marching band in high school?
1 year. I was in the pit. I played bass guitar. I hated it.
In a marching band?
Yeah, in the pit. Yeah, you play the tuba lines basically. It just helps it sound better.
I'm more like confused about how you were able to. I've never heard of a pit for a marching band.
Oh yeah, it's where all the auxiliary percussion is, like all the marimbas and xylophones and bells and stuff. Yeah, only the drum line marches. All the other percussion gets to sit still, which rules.
Oh, we had a whole line of all the brass and everything, but I don't think we had a pit. I wasn't in it, so I'm not totally sure. But that's cool. I didn't know that.
No, it's not. No,
Really?
it's not. No, I don't. I have no. It's a weird cult. It's like it's like the levels of. It has all the incest of all the other niche high school
drama club,
like drama club, cross country, all that stuff, but none of the cachet. And we were egged.
You were egged?
Yeah,
that's horrible. I'm sorry.
Central Pennsylvania, it sucks.
Oh
yeah. What else did I hate about high school?
We're gonna take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more Too Much Information in just a moment.
Keep going. Where are we?
Oh, welcome to your worst nightmare, my friend. We are about to give a special TMI shout out to the Rockettes. Heigl, have you ever seen the Rockettes live and in person?
I've never seen them, but I know about the horrific life of an exotic tiger that they lead.
I've seen them literally more times than I can count. It became this strange. My first trips to New York as a kid where I was brought here by my parents and my aunt to see the Radio City Christmas Spectacular. I was very young, and I must have seen it at least a dozen times over the years. So I have a soft spot in my heart for them. They have been performing with the parade since 1957. But shockingly, the dance troupe that's become so associated with Christmas in New York actually got their start in St. Louis in 1925 when they were known as the Missouri Rockets. That's such a New York story. Get your start in the Midwest under a totally different name. You move to the big city, try to reinvent yourself. Creator Russell Markert got the idea for what we now know as the Rockettes after he was impressed by a UK dance troupe in 1922's Siegfried Follies, which was a review show. Basically, is the closest thing I can think of as how to describe it. He was seized with this can-do, bigger is better American spirit and quoted as saying, "If I got a chance to get a group of American girls who would be taller and have longer legs and could do really complicated tap routines and high kicks, man, they'd really knock your socks off." He didn't say man, but everything else is a quote.
That did really show Jerry.
Yeah.
And the Reds.
And the Limeys.
And the Limeys, all of them.
Russell Markert envisioned a drill team that moved as a single dancer. And when the group toured New York, their show was attended by a theater magnate named S.L. Roxy Rothafeld. Roxy was so taken by the display of athleticism and dance acumen that he hired this group for his Roxy Theater. And this move required a new name, and so the former Missouri Rockets was reborn as the Roxyettes, which then morphed into the American Rockets, the Rosettes, and finally, the Rockettes.
I have a question.
What's that?
How much do you think this was just horniness?
Oh, greater than 75%.
Because I didn't think, other than the high kicks, I didn't think they were known as like an especially amazing dance troupe.
Oh, no, that's not true. No, they're extremely talented.
He said, unconvincingly.
I mean, I don't know enough about dance to be able to like back that up with anything, but no, they're like really. Well, okay, let me. In a minute,
really hot
and tall.
Tall. That's what it is. It's just tall women.
It is shocking to me how every tall woman I know hates being tall. And it makes me so sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, this Roxy character, he was one of the visionaries behind Radio City Music Hall, along with John D. Rockefeller, who bankrolled Rockefeller Center. I always assumed that the Rockettes were named after Rockefeller and Rockefeller Center, but I guess they got the name before Rockefeller Center was a thing. But when Radio City opened on December 27th, 1932, Roxy tapped the Rockettes to perform, and it's been their home ever since. A year later, in 1933, the Radio City Rockettes debuted their iconic Christmas Spectacular, which was designed by future Judy Garland husband and Liza's dad, Vincente Minnelli. During the rest of the year, the Rockettes were the opening act for screenings of the latest movies, back when Radio City was mostly a movie theater. Did you know that? Radio City used to be mainly for movies.
I assume. All those beautiful buildings in like every decaying American city was like a movie theater. Yeah. We used to have a beautiful one in downtown New Cumberland where I grew up.
Really?
It wasn't even a first-run theater when I was growing up. There was literally the $2 theater, but you went in and it had all the gilded, still had the big velvet curtain and the gilded pillars and such.
Wow. Did it get yuppified? Did millennials come in and turn it into one of those like $20 hamburger and martinis while you watch like Breakfast at Tiffany's kind of places?
I'll report back at Christmas.
Yeah. So here, I don't know that much about dancing to be able to offer an informed opinion on the Rockettes' dancing abilities, but I do know a little thing about elbow grease, and damn it, the Rockettes have it. Over 3,000 women have performed as Rockettes since the Christmas Spectacular's opening in 1933, and they are somewhat famously all on the taller side. These days, the height requirement is between 5'6" and 5'10.5" inches. And by placing the tallest girls in the center and lining up in descending order of height, the dancers can create the optical illusion of all being the same height, which is interesting. Imagine it's like a forced perspective thing. I don't know.
I thought they were like running out of money. I thought they were like bankrupt at some point. Like people just stopped giving a shit about them.
Really? I'm not seeing anything about that. I see that the Rockettes Christmas Spectacular was canceled in 2020 for obvious reasons, and it lost millions as a result.
Maybe they're still all right. Good for the Rockettes.
I think they're still kicking.
I don't have an anti-Rockettes agenda. I just think it's horniness. I don't really see what sustained that for 50 years. 100 years, however long this shit happened.
Okay, let me talk about this. Every year, over 1,000 dancers audition to be a Rockette. Only 80 make it. So first of all, the cream rises. They've got to be extremely good at what they do. But the Rockettes, they have a somewhat complicated legacy due to what I'll generously call outdated beauty standards. Height restriction aside, the Rockettes reportedly didn't hire a black dancer named Jennifer Jones until 1987, 55 years after they debuted at Radio City. That's a bad track record. Allow me to quote a piece from the November 20th, 2005 issue of the New York Times. The Rockettes are instantly recognizable symbols, but what they represent depends on who is doing the interpreting. To some, they're Stepford dancers. That's a great pun there with the stepping and the Stepford. That's good.
Yep.
Objectified women reduced to nothing but legs and teeth. To others, they're glamour personified, the last cherished remains of a guys and dolls style nightlife. And to yet another part of the audience, this is me, they're glorious kitsch, as amusing as they are entertaining. Oh, actually, no, I'm the next one also. But one thing is constant, their sheer physical accomplishment. Even in a city full of sweating, striving talent, the Rockettes may well be the hardest working women in show business. And this is true. They truly work their asses off. They rehearse for 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, for 6 weeks before the Christmas Spectacular opens. That's a lot of sixes. Maybe they mistook Satan for Santa. A Rockette named Katie Daniel told the Wall Street Journal in 2013, rehearsals are an all-consuming process that requires a lot of grit, focus, and attention. We practice all day together, and then we go home and practice on our own, and then wake up and practice more. It's nonstop Christmas. There are 2 separate casts of Rockettes with 36 women each, and each cast has 4 swings for a total of 80. And these swings are waiting in the wings in case, I don't know, somebody's Achilles tendon acts up on stage and they gotta tag out. I'm not sure. So this makes the 6 show days slightly more bearable, but still, that's upwards of 1,200 kicks a day. It's leg day every day.
How many kicks a day?
1,200 kicks a day.
It's a lot of kicks.
It's a lot of kicks.
As Bruce Lee once said, I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but one kick 10,000 times.
I fear the woman who's perfected that kick 10,000 times in heels.
Well said.
Okay.
You should start marketing that on Cafe Press or something. I guarantee that'll become a girl boss slogan.
Some of these women are required to wear heavy robes for the nativity scene, for which they use real camels. One rockette was later quoted as saying, "Standing still in that heavy robe, you can feel yourself dripping sweat." And there's a similar problem with the Santa costume, which weighs 40 pounds. But the ladies like to wear it because it's the only costume in which they can wear flats. In a truly remarkable profile in the New York Times from 2005 that I quoted earlier called "The Sweat-Soaked Life of a Glamorous Rockette," writer Susan Dominus describes these women as leaving their homes at 6 in the morning and not arriving back until 11:15, heating up a frozen pizza, feeding their baby, and getting up to do it all again the next day, 6 days a week. They have to perform ultra-quick changes backstage. The fastest is just 78 seconds. That's between the March of the Toy Soldiers and New York at Christmas. And this change includes shoes, hats, and earrings, while all crammed in the dressing room with 7 other dancers. And what I consider to be the ultimate indignity, they all have to do their own hair and makeup themselves.
Jesus.
I know. Radio City management don't comment on what the Rockettes earn, but dancers told the New York Times in this aforementioned 2005 piece that they typically get paid on par with other Broadway dancers. So it's a salary that roughly breaks down to $135 a show, and that was in 2005, so that's closer to $213 today. Sounds, I guess it's 90 minutes worth of work, but that's a hell of a lot of work. Oh my God. But because they perform more than one time a day, and then they get overtime and all sorts of other little perks, it's a well-paying gig. It's also apparently they get health insurance all year too, which is kind of cool. Yeah, I know, right? One of my favorite anecdotes from one of the many Rockettes profiles I read was that they would often get pumped up before showtime by listening to Blondie, Duran Duran, and just before the curtain went up, The Final Countdown by Europe.
Well, sure.
Yeah. Also, their shoes are mic'd up so that the synchronous steps are audible to the crowd. And every Christmas spectacular season, they run through 14,096 AA batteries. I'm told the numbers don't really translate well on TMI. That's something that people glaze over for. They usually like the stories, like the woman running into the balloon in midair. But I don't know. I like some of these numbers.
Well, good, because we got more of them coming your way. Planning for the parade takes about a year and a half, or I don't know, 500 some odd days?
Yeah, that's about right. 50,000 hours of labor.
50,000 hours of labor. More than 30 skilled artists work year-round to prepare. The parade floats require 300 pounds of glitter. Jesus. 240 gallons of paint. More than half a mile of hand-sewn skirt and fringe wrap, plus 200 pounds of confetti.
Oh, I love this story.
They managed to cut some corners, though, on this step in 2012 for reasons that are still undetermined. Shredded documents from the Nassau County Police Department ended up as confetti in the parade. These included clearly visible sensitive information like people's social security numbers, license plate number, and banking data, as well as details about undercover officers. Also found were notes about Mitt Romney's motorcade from the final presidential debate, which took place at Hofstra University. A Macy spokesperson defended the company by saying they only use multicolored confetti and were investigating how the private documents ended up in the parade. He said, Macy's uses commercially manufactured multicolored confetti, not shredded, homemade, or printed paper of any kind in the parade. It is not unusual for spectators to bring and throw their own confetti in the direction of parade participants from the sidelines. So some f***ing Long Island cop showed up with his dirty laundry paperwork and hawked it at Snoopy.
That's my theory. Yep.
God, I love this country. Macy's team designs about 700 new costumes every year, creating an overall wardrobe of 4,200 costumes valued at an estimated $2 million. About 200 costume fitters are on site the morning of the parade to help everyone get into costume, including the custom-made costumes for Santa and Mrs. Claus. And now, onto the balloons themselves, the real star of the show. It is just about the balloons, Jordan. For years, all of the Macy's balloons were made at Macy's Parade Studio, a former Tootsie Roll factory in Hoboken.
I know. That's the universal theory of TMI.
The Tootsie Beast stirs.
That's a balloon I would see.
The Tootsie Beast.
Yeah. Just raining Tootsie Rolls down.
Out of its distended anus.
Tootsie must roll.
They have since moved to a gargantuan 30,000 square foot warehouse in Moonachie, New Jersey. Designers are
Jimmy Hoffa's buried under there.
Yeah, right. The designers are affectionately known as balloonatics.
Balloonatics.
Balloonatics. The way I said it, it could also mean that thing. Balloon addict. The term comes from the parade's... is that where the term comes from? The term comes from the parade's very first balloon-covered float from 1926, which was decked out in traditional balloons and called balloonatics. They didn't just get it from the easy, lazy pun? Okay, no. Whatever. Macy's loves to myth-make this shit. Macy's has had to come up with other new words to describe its balloon creations. There are falloons, or balloon floats. Falloons? Sounds like a racial slur. Balloonicles. Balloonicles sounds like a medical condition. You got to go in and get your balloonicles drained. The nurse is going to roll you over and check you for balloonicles. And tricaloons or balloon tricycles.
That's not even a pun.
The balloonatics begin with pencil sketches of each character, which takes into account both the aerodynamics and engineering. These sketches are made into scaled-down clay models that are used to create casts of the balloons. Speaking of which, did you hear that Wallace and Gromit there's only going to be one more Wallace and Gromit movie because the company that makes their clay went out of business? And there's literally only enough to make one more movie coming out next year.
That's like a proprietary. Insane.
It's a proprietary clay formula that holds up especially well for stop motion. And when they announced that they were going out of business, the company just bought the entire stock, and there's only enough of it left for one more movie.
And they won't sell them the recipe to make it?
I don't know.
That's going to be some change.org petition. These bunch of nerds.
2 miniature replicas are created, one that's marked with technical details and one that's painted in the balloon's colors. The models are immersed in water to figure out how much helium they'll need to float. And then finally, the schematics are scanned by a computer and the fabric pieces are cut and heat sealed to create the various air chambers of the balloon. For years, the balloons were made of rubber, but these days they are made of polyurethane fabric. Overall, the process takes roughly between 5 months to a year. When the balloons are finished, they are tested rigorously at the warehouse. This includes 6 hours of inflation and a skin stress test, known by the highly technical term thumping. These balloons, which regularly weigh around 400 pounds, are then deflated, packed up, and driven through the Lincoln Tunnel, which is briefly closed to traffic just before midnight the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Thus stymieing the DUIers of the world.
I was thinking that.
In order to fit through the tunnel, the balloons and floats must be packed down into boxes that are no more than 12.5 feet high and 8 feet wide, which is obviously a challenge. Then once they arrive in Manhattan, they'll get parade ready in front of the American Museum of Natural History, where people assemble to gather and watch the inflation. Doesn't it take place at 4 in the morning?
Yeah, it's some ungodly hour.
Balloons traditionally last about 8 years before they need to be replaced or retired. Someone walks out and shoots it in the back of the head. The price to design and build a brand new character balloon is $190,000, with subsequent appearances costing $90,000 a year. Macy's will not disclose how much the parade costs each year, saying it's a gift to the city, and as with any gift, you don't leave the price tag on. You f***ers, how much money do you get from the city to run this show?
That's pretty
Probably
good.
Doesn't cost them anything. In addition to the 3 million people who turn out in person each year, more than 44 million watch the parade annually on TV. First broadcast via radio in 1932. Jesus Christ, that is depressing.
I know.
Next, we have a really big balloon that's sort of a racist character. Next, there's... is that Babe Ruth? Next, a marching band from Topeka. Look at them go.
And next, a crew of pygmies.
Yeah, right. Look at their spirit. How they frolic. They'll never see their glistening homeland again. I don't know why he's talking like FDR in this. Like,
we're doing the Hindenburg explosion guy.
Yeah.
We're doing the Oh Humanity guy.
That's true. It was televised locally in 1939 as an experimental early TV broadcast, and finally went national in 1948. It's had a host of hosts, most notably TV news anchors, though from 1962 to 1971, it was co-hosted by the First Lady of Television, Betty White, alongside Bonanza star Lorne Greene. How about that?
You're the only person I know on planet Earth who'd care about that other than me.
How about Lorne Greene? For the folks. Since 1955, NBC has been the official broadcast partner of the parade, but that hasn't stopped those rascals at CBS from trying to hog the glory. Per Wikipedia, CBS, which has a studio in Times Square, carries unauthorized coverage as the Thanksgiving Day Parade on CBS. The Macy's Parade Committee has their hands tied with this situation. While they can endorse an official broadcaster, they cannot award exclusive rights, like a sports broadcast, since the parade takes place in public. So instead, they rerouted the parade away from CBS's studio camera, thus making it significantly more difficult for the network to horn in on their racket. God love them. Ugh, this country. As we mentioned earlier, the popularity of the parade was enhanced by its inclusion in the film Miracle on 34th Street, starring Little Matilda. What do you think of that remake?
I don't really remember the remake. I
Is
only
it
remember
Richard Attenborough or David Attenborough? One of the Attenboroughs is Santa in that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The original was released in 1947. The movie featured footage from the actual parade. Cameras were placed both along the parade route and on the third floor of a nearby apartment to capture shots of what you describe as the electric atmosphere of the 1946 parade. Hilariously, the film's leading lady, Maureen O'Hara, best known to you as the mom in the original Parent Trap, requested a police escort to shop in Macy's after they filmed the parade segments. The assistant director responded, "I know New Yorkers. They aren't going to pay any attention to you. And don't wear a bandana around your head or dark glasses. Just be normal." Yeah, good advice. Not to go too deep on Miracle on 34th Street. I will never do an episode on this, so this is all you're getting. 20th Century Fox head Daryl F. Zanuck insisted that it be released in May because he believed that more people go to the movies in warmer weather. What?
I think because movie theaters were the only air-conditioned places
right.
then,
Yeah. All mention of Christmas was scrubbed from the promotional materials for the film as a result of Zanuck's brainstorm. The trailer features a fictional producer strolling a backlot where a bunch of the famous actors and actresses endorse the movie, and the Santa character is so small in the poster that he's mostly unidentifiable. The movie also features Natalie Wood in her child star phase. She arguably made one of the most successful jumps from child star to adult actor, a transition affected by her role alongside James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause. Director Nicholas Ray was wary of casting her in that film due to her reputation as a squeaky clean child starlet. But then, while on a night out with friends, she got into a car accident. Upon hearing this, Ray rushed to the hospital. While in delirium, Wood overheard the doctor murmuring and calling her a damn juvenile delinquent. At which point she yelled to Ray, "Do you hear what he called me, Nick? He called me a damn juvenile delinquent. Now do I get the part?" And then Robert Wagner drowned her. And Christopher Walken was there.
And Christopher Walken as himself.
Do you think he'll come clean about that at some point?
Wagner or Walken?
Either.
Walken, probably not. Wagner,
like a deathbed confession?
Maybe. I don't know. He's had so many times to do that, though, and so many very
Wagner?
special interview.
Oh,
yeah. I think there was a documentary made by... I forget if it was the daughter that they had together or if it was just Natalie's daughter from another marriage. But yeah, they had some documentary on Natalie Wood a few years ago. I remember watching it during pandemic freshman year. And yeah, it was he had some big emotional, it wasn't me moment.
It was Walken. Jordan.
Yes.
Speaking of disasters.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm the disaster guy, yeah. From large boat to large balloons. It has not been always smooth sailing I almost had a beautiful transition there. It has not always been smooth sailing for these Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade performers.
Speaking of Natalie Wood, it hasn't always been smooth sailing. for the Macy's Day
How dare
Parade.
you? How dare you?
Look, you wouldn't, so I had to.
Oh. There's other things went wrong. Mistakes were made in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Now, most of the problems with the parade come down to the balloons specifically. Balloons over the years have hit electrical wires, signs, tree branches, and street lights, deflating parts of the balloons and even injuring onlookers. To kind of minimize this, the balloons are divided into several individual segments so that the show can go on if somebody, losing an arm or a leg or something. In 1931, a balloon in the shape of the wrestler The Terrible Turk burst after hitting a traffic pole. The New York Times described it thus: Terrible Turk does split as laughing children see him deflate in shame. That's like some old Variety headline or something.
Boffo.
We've been together too long, my friend. There's a persistent rumor that a Felix the Cat balloon burst into flames after hitting some high-tension wires in 1931. I've done some digging on this, and apparently there's some truth in the myth, but it is kind of a myth. This actually occurred days after the Macy's Day Parade, after the balloon, which had been, remember, this was in the days when they just set the balloons free, came to rest in West Norwood, New Jersey. Which was yet another reason why the plan to have these balloons just float away was really stupid. After the guy in the plane tried to hook it on its wing and missed, and the balloon floated off, it flew over to New Jersey, connected with some high-tension wires, and burst into flames. A mini Hindenburg. In 1956, Mighty Mouse lost his battle against 45-degree winds, veering into a street sign and collapsing dramatically near Columbus Circle. Afterwards, the balloon was retired from the parade. I guess it was that badly damaged. In 1956, the Popeye balloon made a splash after heavy rains accumulated in the brim of his hat and overflowed and drenched the crowd below. And a similar thing happened a few years later in 1962 with the Donald Duck balloon, who also wore a hat. This was a relatively minor mishap, but major problems can occur. In 1971, the balloons were grounded for the first time in the parade's history due to heavy rains and strong winds. In Thanksgiving 1985, one of the rainiest on record, Kermit the Frog was blown into a tree and ripped. The following year, Superman's right arm ripped off in the middle of the parade after getting blown into a tree. And in 1993, Sonic the Hedgehog, the very first video game character to get their own balloon, knocked over a street lamp, injuring a spectator in the process. But this is all a preamble for the Thanksgiving disaster of 1997. Macy's Annus Horribilis. How do you say that?
Whatever.
Yeah.
You said anise.
I did, yeah. Which is fitting because 1997 was the year that Beavis and Butthead had a balloon. It wasn't actually flown, though. They just tied it to a building that was on the parade route, which is pretty funny. There was a Kurt Loder-hosted special, Beavis and Butthead Do Thanksgiving, which I would like to watch. I'm sure it's on YouTube. Yeah, maybe not. But this was a very blustery day with winds reaching up to 40 miles an hour, and the balloons were difficult to control. NYPD officers were enlisted to stab both Barney and the Pink Panther balloon over safety concerns. And to fully explore the scope of this truly disastrous parade, I would like to cite, I don't think we've ever done this before, in full, a New York Times article by Douglas Martin, published on November 28th, 1997, under the headline, Macy's Parade of Balloons Gets One Thing It Doesn't Need, Wind. Take us away.
Sudden bursts of punishing winds spun havoc at Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade yesterday, as many of the parade's signature helium-filled balloons were damaged, and as 4 spectators were hurt when one of the giant balloons struck a lamppost, plunging the top part of it into the crowd.
Two people. It's 1997, not 1937. I'm kidding.
Fine.
No. Read it as ever your heart desires.
2 people were hospitalized with severe head injuries. The accident was a strange... Read it.
I should have let you get that one in there.
The accident was a strange and grim counterpart to a sunny day of high festivity, in which most of the 2 million spectators were far away from the accident and had no idea it happened. God, the New York Times. Clowns. They cheered, clapped, and squealed as 14 marching bands from 13 states strutted past. Or marched. As 600 clowns and 1,200 cheerleaders enthusiastically did their thing.
Paper or record. You can't say a marching band marched. It's please allow myself to introduce myself. It's the crown jewel in the crown.
Surely you could say a clown gambled or a cheerleader. Yeah, I mean, did their thing. Whatever. Most emphatically, as the immense 6-story balloons of instantly recognizable cartoon characters glided past the brick, glass, and concrete of Manhattan. Only at times, the balloons were not gliding, but instead were careening as their handlers on the ground struggled to keep control in winds that reached as high as 43 miles an hour. For a while, the balloons seemed to be falling like flies. Barney suffered extensive damage and had to be removed at 51st Street. The Pink Panther succumbed at 42nd Street. Quick Bunny and the Cat in the Hat limped away at 36th Street. There was high drama as the balloon handlers and the police tried to control the airborne chaos. As the Pink Panther lurched about while simultaneously imploding, a police inspector shouted, "Somebody give me a knife, quick." An officer quickly handed him a 5-inch long knife, and he punched a hole through the feline's tail, a move that almost immediately stabilized the balloon. Joyce Rice, who held one of the Panther's ropes, said she was terrified. The balloon was caught on top of me and my daughter. We thought it was going to smother us. Some of the Panther's handlers said one of their colleagues was knocked unconscious during the collapse, but the police would not confirm the report. The worst problem occurred at 72nd Street and Central Park West, when the 6-story tall Cat in the Hat struck a lamppost on the northeast corner, causing the horizontal metal arm to break off. Pat Clem, who videotaped the incident and gave the tape to the police, said the lamppost was wobbling in the wind even before the balloon struck it. Eric Newland, from Katana, New York, said the balloon struck the lampost's arm twice. "You thought it was going to bounce off," he said, "but the second time it snapped. It was suspended for an instant, then it spiraled way down. The parade just stopped," he continued. There was a prolonged silence. Your thoughts go from happy, joyous Thanksgiving to prayers. John Morley of Manhattan said the falling arm missed him and his 4-year-old daughter, Surette, by about a foot. He said the Cat in the Hat was the second balloon to strike that particular lamppost. When he realized the arm was teetering, he started to push through the crowd with his daughter to escape. It was coming. That's the guy who shoved other women and children out of the way of to get on a lifeboat in the Titanic. It was coming right at me, he said. Ronnie Taffet, a Macy spokeswoman, said a number of adjustments were made because of the weather. The balloons were inflated less to reduce their buoyancy and flown lower and at an angle to make them harder for the wind to catch. Additional handlers were also added. Mayor Rudolph W. Giuliani said the city would look into how to prevent such accidents in the future. If this is something that can be corrected in the future, we'll correct it. We'll find out what happened. I don't think we know enough to answer that yet. He spoke after visiting the 2 more seriously injured victims at St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital. Anytime there's an injury like this, it makes you feel very, very bad, Mr. Giuliani said. At the same time, the parade has a long, long history. It's a beautiful parade. It accomplishes a great deal for young people and for the city. What a f***ing ass. Did he say that at the hospital bed? Tragedy. But at the same time, beautiful parade. Before the parade
Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln.
Before the parade began, the often driving wind was the main topic of discussion. You can never tell which way the wind demons are going to get you, said Manfred G. Bass, the chief designer of what he terms air sculptures. That should have won them a Pulitzer. I need to know everything about Manfred G. Bass. Meanwhile, captains for each balloon lectured their crews. All stressed the need to be extra vigilant because of the wind. Some of their advice was technical, such as where to position one's arms while gripping the spool of cord. Some were playful, such as the admonition not to wave to television cameras with both hands. And some remarks were prophetic. "What is it Betty Davis said? Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride," a captain shouted over the crescendoing wind. The crash of Barney, the purple dinosaur beloved by preschoolers and loathed by some parents, was heart-stopping for those at the end of its ropes. Everything turned purple said Antonella Laggiano of Mamaroneck, New York. That woman's racist. Barney attacked us, said a still stunned Isabella Fasciano of Hoboken, New Jersey. Also a racist. After it fell, police officers rushed to puncture it with knives and relieve the danger. I was wrong. This is painting a truly beautiful, vivid image.
That's why I wanted to read it all.
The NYPD stabbing Barney to death on the ground.
While children watch.
Yeah. The combination of cold and wind defined the parade for participants. The bare legs of the drill team for the first band, Butler High School from Butler, PA, were painfully pink. People in kangaroo costumes hopped about for warmth as much as dramatic effect. And the handlers holding onto the balloons, all of whom volunteered for the seemingly fun job, hung on for dear life. It's a lot more work than I thought it would be, said Brian Shearman, who clung tightly to a disturbingly frisky Peter Rabbit. Mr. Shearman had volunteered at the urging of his girlfriend, who works in Macy's public relations department. You
talked to who?
And despite the wins and the problems they caused, the spectators got what they came for. Christina Benitez from Tucson, Arizona. I pronounced it like the fucking guy does in What We Do in the Shadow. Tucson, Arizona. Christina Benitez from Tucson, Arizona watched the parade with beaming pleasure at Broadway and 36th Street. This is our culture, the American spirit of fun. I'm proud to be here, the tourist said.
Well, I tell you, it's our culture.
What a hideous collection of words I was exposed to just now. I wish you'd let me read it all in the newscaster voice. That would have been something. I'll continue.
Following the tragedy, the city put a policy in place that dictates that balloons can't fly if winds are stronger than 23 miles an hour and wind gusts are higher than 34 miles an hour. I don't know the difference between winds and wind gusts.
I think winds is the average, and then gusts as high as.
Oh, okay.
That's how I see it on like AccuWeather, you know.
Apparently, one of these injured women who was hit in the head by the falling street lamp, Kathy Corona, was in a coma for almost a month. When she awoke, she still had a dent in her skull as wide as a tennis ball. After she recovered, she'd sued Macy's, who settled out of court in 2001. But here's where it gets truly weird. In 2006, Yankees pitcher Corey Little was flying his private four-seater plane when he accidentally crashed into a condominium complex on East 72nd Street called the Bel Air Apartments. The aforementioned Kathy Corona, the coma woman, lived in this building, and the engine from the plane landed in her bedroom. Presumably, she moved out of New York after this.
That is really one of those, is there a God and does she hate me kind of things?
Yeah, I don't think she was home at the time, but still. Despite this policy about not flying balloons in high winds, there have been a few mishaps in recent years. The last major incident involving injury took place in 2005 when the M&M's balloon hit a lamppost near Times Square, causing the light to fall and hit two women in the crowd. I believe they both were okay. And then in 2008, a Keith Haring balloon took a turn a little too wide and rammed the broadcast booth with Al Roker, Meredith Vieira, and Matt Lauer, temporarily taking them off the air. There's got to be a clip of that on YouTube. I should have looked that up.
It's so funny to me that Keith Haring became this like live, laugh, love grade, like middle America thing, like so recognizable because so many other of his drawings have like huge dicks in them.
Yep.
Like frequently right next to that f***ing dog that's everywhere. And people are like, no, we just want the baby with the rays coming out of it. Thank you. We choose to engage with no other part of this man's legacy.
I think the hospital down the street from where I live, Woodhull Hospital, has an original Keith Haring mural. Because I think it was I think at the time in the 80s, it was on the, I'd say the cutting edge of AIDS research. Maybe not AIDS research, but it treated.
Yeah, he's a fascinating guy. I mean, he it's funny too that people would get up in arms about him, quote unquote, selling out because he was a big sellout. He had would sell his own stuff, like prints and stuff, out of like a pop-up in Soho. He was very much about like just he wanted to make money, which good on him. But yeah, a lot of dicks.
So that was 2008. Due to COVID-19, organizers switched to a TV-only parade in 2020, eliminating spectators from the route and requiring the dramatically scaled-down group of handlers to wear masks during the abbreviated parade route outside the Macy's flagship store. So the parade endured, but the biggest disaster may be still to come. Apparently there was, or maybe still is, a Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade movie in the works, the premise of which involves oversized balloons coming to life.
Yes. Yeah. I hope it's a horror. I hope it's a hard R horror.
I imagine it's a kid's movie.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like Stay Puft Marshmallow Man style. I mean, that would be cool.
It wouldn't be anything. If Macy's is actually signing off on it, it wouldn't be anything vaguely edgy.
Yeah, no. But for this year, 2023, I'm thankful that this cherished piece of monoculture remains relatively untainted. So we've reached the end of our discussion of Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Heigl, how do you feel? Did I deliver on my promise of it being more interesting?
You did. I can wholeheartedly say between Intrusive Thoughts, Woman Pilot, and the woman the sky fell on twice. This was a truly beautiful episode.
Well, folks, I am truly thankful that we get to be here and be giant nerds together. Me and my dear friend Alex Heigl, and get to spend this time with you, Alex. This is so nice.
Making truly foul jokes that will never see the light of air. Yeah, I'd love to sometime, maybe even this Thanksgiving, maybe we can just live stream it and share a piece of pumpkin pie before I get too drunk and start yelling at the football teams that I know nothing about. Who's playing? How are the Patriots doing, Jordan?
Bad. That I know.
Oh,
that
good.
Much I know.
Good. Yeah. Great. I love that. All right. Well, thanks for listening, folks. This has been Massachusetts. The show.
I will deliver that message in person this Thanksgiving for you.
I'm Alex Heigl.
And I'm Jordan Runtagh. We'll catch you next time. Happy Thanksgiving. Too Much Information was a production of iHeart Radio.
The show's executive producers are Noel Brown and Jordan Runtagh.
The show's supervising producer is Michael Alder June.
The show was researched, written, and hosted by Jordan Runtagh and Alex Heigl,
with original music by Seth Applebaum and the Ghost Funk Orchestra. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review. For more podcasts on iHeart Radio, visit the iHeart Radio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.